The fear is not that life ends. The fear is that life ends before we ever rest as who we truly are. There comes a quiet moment in life when the world stops asking us to become something else. Not because we failed, not because we gave up, but because we have carried enough. Many people think aging is about losing strength, losing beauty, losing time. But what if aging is actually about something deeper? What if this stage of life is not an ending, but an invitation? An invitation to stop proving, to stop defending our story, to stop carrying roles that no longer fit. In this video, we will not talk about how to fix your life. We will talk about how to rest inside it, slowly, honestly, with kindness toward who you have been and who you are becoming now. If these words speak to you, I invite you to stay with me for a while. This is Son.Mindfulness, a quiet space for reflection, understanding, and gentle wisdom for the later seasons of life. You don't need to agree with everything, just listen and see what feels true for you. Part 1. The quiet fear no one talks about. Let me begin gently today, not by talking about wrinkles, not about gray hair, not even about the body slowing down, because if we are honest, those are not the things that hurt the most. The deepest fear of aging is not that life ends. The deepest fear is this, that life might end without ever being lived honestly. Many people have never said this out loud, but you may have felt it, quietly, in the background of your days. A feeling that comes when no one asks for your opinion anymore. When your phone rings less often, when the world moves on and you are no longer needed in the same way. Have you ever felt that? I have sat with many older friends over the years. Strong people, kind people, people who worked hard, raised families, carried responsibilities for decades. And more than once, someone has whispered to me, "I don't mind getting older. I just don't want to become invisible." In Buddhism, we speak often about suffering, but there's one kind of suffering that is rarely named. It is the quiet shame of aging. Not shame because the body changes, but shame because we start believing that our worth has expired. That if we are no longer productive, no longer efficient, no longer useful in the way we once were, then perhaps we no longer matter. This shame is very subtle. It does not shout. It whispers. It says things like, "I shouldn't take up space. I don't want to bother anyone. I should already know better. I had my time." Have you ever heard that voice inside? From a psychological perspective, this makes sense. For most of your life, your identity was built around roles. You were someone's parent, someone's provider, someone's problem solver, someone's leader, and then slowly, those roles begin to loosen. Not because you failed, but because life is changing its rhythm. Yet no one teaches us how to grieve roles. We are taught how to retire from jobs, but not how to retire from identities. So when those roles fall away, many people feel an unexpected pain, not physical pain, existential pain. The pain of asking, if I am no longer needed, who am I now? This is where Buddhist wisdom offers something very radical. Impermanence, anicca, is not a loss, it is an invitation. An invitation to stop performing, to stop proving, to stop earning the right to exist. Impermanence is life gently saying, you don't have to play that role anymore. But letting go of a role can feel like losing yourself, especially if you were never taught who you are underneath it. That is why aging feels frightening for many people. Not because of death, but because the masks are falling away. And without the mask, we are asked to meet ourselves honestly. I want to be very clear with you. Feeling afraid at this stage of life does not mean you are weak. Feeling lost does not mean you have failed. It means you are standing at a threshold. A threshold where life is no longer asking, "What can you do for me?" but quietly asking, Who are you when there is nothing left to prove? This question is not meant to scare you. It is meant to free you. And we will walk through it together, slowly, gently, one step at a time. For now, I leave you with this question today. If you no longer had to be useful, who would you allow yourself to be? You do not need an answer yet. Just carry the question with you. Part 2. Your body is not failing you. I want to talk with you now about the body, but not in the way we are usually taught. Not with rules, not with instructions, not with another list of things you should be doing better. Because most older people already know the advice. Eat well, sleep well, move gently. You've heard that before. But I want to offer you a different way of listening to your body today. What if your body is not failing you? What if it is simply changing jobs? For most of your life, your body was a worker. It carried you through long days. It pushed through fatigue. It ignored pain so you could meet deadlines, raise children, survive. Your body knew how to perform. But now, your body is no longer meant to be a worker. It is becoming a teacher. And teachers speak differently. Let's talk about pain for a moment. Joint pain, stiffness, that dull ache that seems to come and go. We often treat pain like an enemy, something to eliminate, something that means something is wrong. But from a deeper perspective, pain is not punishment. Pain is memory. Your joints remember decades of movement. Your muscles remember years of effort. Your spine remembers every time you carried more than your share. Pain is time, speaking through the body. When you see it this way, something softens. Instead of asking, "Why is my body doing this to me?" you may begin to ask, "What has my body been carrying for me all these years?" Now let's talk about fatigue. Many older people tell me, almost apologetically, "I get tired more easily now." And I often say to them, "Of course you do." Fatigue is not failure. Fatigue is a request. Your body is asking for a slower rhythm. Not because it is weak, but because it no longer wants to be rushed through life. In Buddhism, slowness is not laziness. Slowness is wisdom. It allows the mind to arrive where the body already is. So when tiredness comes, instead of resisting it, you might gently say, "Thank you for reminding me to slow down." And then there is sleep. Sleeping more than you used to. Napping during the day. Falling asleep earlier. Many people feel embarrassed about this. But sleep at this stage of life is not escape. It is practice. Each time you fall asleep, you are practicing letting go. Letting go of control, letting go of effort, letting go of the day. In Buddhist teachings, sleep has often been described as a small rehearsal for surrender. Not something to fear, something to trust. Now I want to invite you into a brief moment of awareness. You do not need to change anything. You do not need to fix anything. Just listen. If you are able, place one hand gently on your body wherever you feel discomfort. It could be your knee, your lower back, your shoulder, or simply your chest. Do not try to improve the sensation. Just let your hand rest there. Feel the warmth of your palm. Feel the contact, and in your own quiet way, say to that part of your body, "I hear you." No judgment, no impatience, just listening. Stay there for a few breaths. Allow your body to feel that it is no longer being ignored. Often pain softens not because it disappears, but because it is finally acknowledged. When you are ready, you can gently release your hand. What I want you to remember is this: your body is not an obstacle to your spiritual life. It is the doorway. Every ache invites kindness. Every moment of tiredness invites rest. Every need for sleep invites surrender. This is not decline. This is refinement. Your body is teaching you how to live with less force and more presence. I leave you with this question today. If your body is no longer asking you to push, what might it be teaching you instead? You don't need to answer. Just listen. Part 3. The mind that no longer needs to win. There is something very quiet that happens to the mind as we grow older. It doesn't happen suddenly, and it doesn't happen to everyone, but when it does, it can feel both unsettling and deeply freeing. The mind begins to loosen its grip. For most of our lives, the mind is trained to win, to be right, to defend its story, to justify choices, to explain why things turned out the way they did. We collect reasons, we collect explanations, we collect versions of ourselves that make sense to the world. And without noticing it, we spend decades carrying an invisible burden, the need to explain our life. Why we stayed, why we left, why we chose this path and not another, why we succeeded here and failed there. Have you ever noticed how tiring that is? Many people think that letting go of the past means forgiving others. But that is only part of the story. The deeper letting go is this: releasing the need to explain your life. Releasing the inner courtroom where you are both the accused and the defense attorney. Releasing the endless inner conversations that begin with, "If only, I should have." They don't understand that. As we age, something very compassionate becomes possible. The mind no longer needs to finish the story. In Buddhism, there is a concept called beginner's mind. It does not mean being naive. It does not mean forgetting what you know. Beginner's mind means this: a mind that is no longer protecting an identity. When you are young, the mind must protect itself. It must prove competence. It must establish value. It must defend choices. But later in life, the mind is finally allowed to be unfinished. And unfinished does not mean broken. Unfinished means open. I once spoke with an older man who told me very softly, "I used to argue all the time. Now I don't feel the need to finish every sentence." He smiled when he said it. That smile told me something important. When the mind stops trying to win, peace begins to enter. From a scientific perspective, this makes sense too. Modern neuroscience tells us that the brain remains plastic throughout life. This is called neuroplasticity. But learning changes as we age. We may learn more slowly, but we learn more deeply. The older brain is not designed for speed. It is designed for integration. It connects meaning instead of chasing novelty. That is why learning a new language, a new instrument, or a new spiritual practice later in life often feels different. It is not about achievement. It is about presence. And this brings us back to the past. So much mental suffering in later life comes not from what happened, but from how tightly we are still holding the explanation. The mind says, "I need them to understand. I need to justify why I did what I did. I need to make sense of it before I can rest." But what if rest does not require explanation? What if peace comes not from resolving the story, but from setting it down? This is where humility quietly replaces pride. Not humiliation, humility. The humility to say, "This is how my life unfolded," without apology, without defense, without needing agreement. This does not erase responsibility. It simply releases self-punishment. And when the mind no longer needs to protect its image, something very gentle emerges. Curiosity. You may notice yourself listening more than speaking, asking questions without needing answers, learning not to add something new, but to see something familiar with fresh eyes. This is beginner's mind. Not the mind of a child, but the mind of someone who no longer needs to be certain. I want to offer you a gentle reflection today. Is there a part of your story that you are still explaining, hoping someone will finally understand? And what might happen if you let that explanation rest, just for today? You do not need to forget your past. You do not need to rewrite it. You only need to release the burden of carrying it forward. I leave you with this question to carry with you. If you no longer had to defend your life story, what would your mind be free to learn now? You don't need an answer. Just notice the space that opens when the question is asked. Part 4. Emotional debts and self-forgiveness. There is a quiet truth I have noticed over the years. As people grow older, they often become very good at forgiving others. They forgive old friends, they forgive family members, they forgive people who disappointed them. But there is one forgiveness that remains unfinished: forgiving themselves. Many older people carry an invisible weight, not anger, not resentment, debt, emotional debt, unpaid promises made long ago to someone they used to be, a promise to be braver, a promise to leave sooner, a promise to speak up, a promise to live more honestly. And when life unfolded differently, those promises did not disappear. They became silent burdens. You are not carrying stones of regret. You are carrying old promises made to someone you used to be. This is why self-forgiveness is often harder than forgiving others. When someone else hurts us, we can say, they did the best they could. But when we look at ourselves, we say, I should have known better. We judge our past self with the wisdom we only gained later. That is not fairness. That is cruelty disguised as responsibility. From a psychological point of view, this inner judgment keeps the nervous system tense, the body remains alert, the mind keeps replaying old scenes. Not to punish you, but to prevent the pain from happening again. Yet the past cannot be corrected through tension, only through kindness. In Buddhist teachings, forgiveness is not a moral obligation. It is a release of energy. It is the moment we stop demanding that the past be different. And self-forgiveness is not saying, everything I did was right. It is saying, I am no longer going to hurt myself for having been human. I want to invite you now into a simple letting go ritual. Nothing dramatic, nothing emotional, just very quiet. If you are comfortable, allow your eyes to soften or gently close. Bring to mind one version of yourself from the past, not the worst version, not the best, just a younger you, standing at a moment where life felt complicated. Notice how that person looks, notice their posture. You do not need details, just sense their presence. Now silently say to them, I know you were trying. Not trying to be perfect, just trying to survive. Trying to belong, trying to do what you knew at the time. Notice what happens in your body as you say this. Next, imagine placing down a small bundle. Inside it are all the expectations you carried for that younger self, all the outcomes you hoped for, all the ways you believed life should have gone. You do not throw it away. You simply place it on the ground. And you say quietly, I no longer need you to carry this. There is no apology required, no explanation needed, just acknowledgement. Stay here for a few breaths. Allow the body to feel what it feels. Calm, or resistance, or nothing at all. All of it is welcome. When you are ready, gently return your attention to the room. What I want you to understand is this. Self-forgiveness does not erase memory. It changes your relationship with memory. It allows you to remember without reopening the wound. It allows you to carry your life with dignity instead of debt. Many people believe peace comes from having lived a flawless life. But peace actually comes from no longer punishing yourself for the life you lived. And this is a practice, not a one-time moment. Each time the mind brings up an old regret, you have a choice. You can reopen the case, or you can gently say, that chapter is closed. I leave you with this question today. Is there a promise you made to your younger self that no longer needs to be paid? You don't need to answer now. Just notice what becomes lighter when the question is asked. There is a stage of life that is rarely spoken about clearly, not because it is dark, but because it is subtle. This is not the stage of preparing for death. It is the stage of preparing to leave without resentment. Many people believe spiritual maturity means having answers, strong beliefs, clear convictions, a sense of certainty about what comes next. But in my experience, spiritual maturity looks very different. It looks like fewer arguments, fewer explanations, fewer emotional knots left behind. It looks like a quiet willingness to stop tightening the threads that bind us to others. As we grow older, a natural question arises: what will I leave behind? Most people interpret this as legacy, money, possessions, achievements, stories that will be told. But Buddhism invites us to ask a different question. Not what will I leave behind, but what will I leave within others? Because long after objects disappear, what remains is how people feel when they remember you. And what burdens them is not what you didn't give, it is the emotional knots that were never loosened. I have sat with families after loss, not as a ritual, but as a human being. And I have noticed something very clear. The greatest pain is not missing what was given. It is carrying what was unresolved. Words never said. Tensions never softened. Moments where love was present, but hidden behind pride or fear. This is why spiritual maturity is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming less harmful. In Buddhism, we speak of metta. Metta is often translated as loving kindness, but that translation is incomplete. Metta is not a feeling you try to generate. It is not warmth. It is not affection. Metta is a state of non-harming. It is the decision to stop adding weight to the hearts of others. You do not need to feel loving all the time. You only need to be willing to cause less harm. As life moves closer to its natural conclusion, something very gentle becomes possible. You realize you do not need to fix everything. You do not need to correct every misunderstanding. You do not need to be fully understood. You only need to soften the places where your presence still tightens the room. This might look like saying, "I don't need to win this," or you may remember it differently. Or simply, "I'm sorry I carried that so tightly." These are not confessions, they are releases. Spiritual maturity is recognizing that love does not require resolution. It requires space. Space for others to be who they are. Space for yourself to be unfinished. And when you live this way, you begin to prepare for leaving without resentment. Not resentment toward others, and not resentment toward life. I want to invite you into a small reflection. Think of the people closest to you, not many, just one or two. Notice if there is any place where your relationship feels tight, not broken, just tight. You do not need to act, you do not need to speak, just notice and gently ask yourself, what would it feel like to loosen this, just a little? Leaving fewer knots does not mean abandoning boundaries. It does not mean allowing harm. It means choosing peace over control. It means trusting that love does not need to be managed to be real. This is not about preparing for death. This is about preparing for rest. Rest from emotional labor. Rest from proving. Rest from holding the world together. When you live this way, your presence becomes lighter, and that lightness is what others will carry with them. I leave you with this question today. If your time with others were shorter than you expect, what emotional knots would you choose to loosen first? You don't need to answer. Just notice what softens when the question is asked. I don't want to end this time together with a summary, because life is not something to be concluded. It is something to be gently set down when the moment is right. You have listened quietly. You have reflected honestly, and perhaps without realizing it, you have already begun to loosen something inside. So instead of a conclusion, I want to offer you a blessing. Not a religious one, not a formal one, just a human blessing. from one traveler to another. For most of your life, the world asked you to become something. Stronger, smarter, more capable, more responsible. You answered that call, again and again. You carried roles, you carried expectations, you carried stories that were never entirely yours. And now, very quietly, life is asking something different. It is no longer asking you to become something else. It is gently inviting you to rest as who you already are. This rest is not withdrawal, it is arrival. Arrival in your own body, arrival in your own pace, arrival in a life that no longer needs to be explained. You do not need to prove your worth anymore. You do not need to finish every story. You do not need to carry every memory forward. You are allowed to set things down. I want to bless the part of you that learned to survive. And I also want to bless the part of you that is learning how to soften. Both belong here. You were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be present. And presence at this stage of life is a quiet miracle. If there are moments when fear returns, and it will, may you remember that fear is not a sign you are failing. It is a sign that something old is dissolving. If there are moments when sadness appears, may you let it pass through without turning it into judgment. If there are moments when peace visits you unexpectedly, may you not question whether you deserve it. You do. I bless your body, not to be pain-free, but to be met with kindness. I bless your mind, not to have all the answers, but to rest from defending its story. I bless your heart, not to love perfectly, but to leave fewer knots behind. And when the time comes, not today, not tomorrow, but someday, when you begin to loosen your grip on this life, may you do so without resentment. Not resentful of what you didn't finish, not resentful of what you couldn't change, not resentful of who you became. May you feel in your bones that this life was lived honestly enough. Old age is not the end of life. It is the moment life finally stops asking you to become something else and gently invites you to rest as who you already are. Take this blessing with you. You don't need to hold it tightly. Just let it walk beside you as you move through your days. And remember, you are not late. You are not behind. You are exactly where life has brought you. That is enough. Conclusion. Nothing needs to be fixed right now. Nothing needs to be added. This moment is already complete. As life moves forward, it does not ask us to become better versions of ourselves. It gently asks us to become more honest ones, to live with less force, to forgive ourselves more fully, to leave fewer knots in the hearts we touch. Aging is not a loss of life. It is life finally slowing down so we can hear what truly matters. And if something in this reflection stayed with you today, let it stay quietly. There is nothing you need to do with it. Thank you for spending this time with me. Your presence here truly matters. If you would like to continue this quiet journey together, you are always welcome to subscribe and return to Son.Mindfulness. May your days be gentle, your body be treated with kindness, and your heart remain at peace.